Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head to Eslöv, which is just a little bit to the north of me here in Lund in Skåne in the south of Sweden. We're going to return to a brewery that I always enjoy reviewing beers from because they've got a few little quirky things that they do actually, and this is one of their beers that they released very recently at the start of December through the Systembolaget Små Partiers, and you know, this is one I always enjoy reviewing these beers whenever I get the chance. So for this one we're going to return to the Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri, basically Remmarlöv Farm Brewery if you want to translate it into English, and this is a special edition of their local hops beers that they do. This one is called the Growers Reserve. They're describing it as a harvest ale. Untappd has it listed as a sort of dark ale, and it comes in at 7% ABV, and this one is using locally grown Swedish hops from Korngården's farm, and I've been out there and had a little look at it, and it's a very kind of interesting setup actually. So yeah, very curious to see how this beer turns out. I enjoyed the last one that they had that I tried from these guys from the local hops. It was really, they just wanted to show off the kind of flavours and things that you get, but this farm are growing, you know, 3 or 4 different varieties of hops actually, which is kind of cool. You know, they've got, I think I wanted to say they've got a Czech a Swedish version of Magnum and stuff like that as well, and they've got a few other, I think they've got Cascade and things like that too. So very, very interesting to see that Sweden is starting to grow hops. It's good to see more and more countries experimenting with these things, and of course it's a really interesting time, you know, to try these beers when the hops are just kind of starting to come out. So yeah, we'll see how we get on with this one. I'm very curious about it, and I hope you guys enjoy my take on this one. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri before. No doubt I will add some more in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about the Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri then, I'll also tell you a little bit about the Korngården's farm as well. But the brewery are based on a farm just outside of Eslöv, which, as I mentioned to you earlier, is a little bit to the north of me here in Lund, but they've been brewing here since the winter, kind of autumn of 2014, and in January of 2015 they started selling their beers through Systembolaget, which of course is the monopoly and the alcohol monopoly that we have here in Sweden. But the owner and founder of the company is Håkan Nilsson. Together with his wife Michelle, he started his plan for a brewery a couple of years back, and the brewery is located on his family farm, and Håkan is the 5th generation of his family to farm the land here in Skåne in the countryside. But the old barn was renovated and a brew house of 1500 litres was installed, and then they hired Hampus Olofsson, who was hired as a brewer in August 2014, having previously worked for Malmö Brewing Company. And he does some really interesting beers actually. Probably my favourite ones that I've had from these guys so far have been the Red Slope, the really strong red ale that they do, and also the Sweet Hoof is a very nice one as well. I really like that kind of sort of, I can't remember if that was a milk stout they described it as, but that was a very, very nice beer too. I first tried that at the Malmö Öl and Whiskey Festival, which I believe was back in 2016, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, he's quite a talented brewer, this one, and you know, Malmö Brewing Company, of course, are brewing some very, very interesting beers as well. But yeah, they've been expanding their capacity over the last little while. They've got more tanks and things like that from what I've seen, but they are still a fairly kind of small operation. This was one of their beers that they've put out. They've put a couple of beers out through, you know, nationally through the small partiers and things like that in Systembolaget, which I think is very cool. So they are gradually kind of getting a little bit more adventurous and upscaling, which is always nice to see for one of your local businesses. But that's all you really need to know about the brewery just now. If you want to learn a little bit more, check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram, and that will keep you up to date with all the latest goings on with the brewery. So yeah, a little bit about the Korngården's farm as well. So as I mentioned to you at the start of the video, this beer is hopped with locally grown Swedish hops. And this farm can be found on Korngården, which is just outside of Staffanstorp, kind of to the south-east-ish of Lund, if I'm remembering correctly. But they've got about 1,500 plants on site, and it's a 5,000 square metre area with approximately 1.2 tonnes of hop cones produced every year. I think they are planning to upscale that, but they've been growing Magnum, Sapphire, and a couple of other like locally produced Swedish varieties as well. And it's really impressive actually. I've been there and had a little look at it. It's really quite nicely set up, and the guy that runs this farm, of course, is actually brewing a few of his own beers using his own hops as well, so it would be cool to see him actually start up his own brewery at some point too. And he did say that that was a possibility when we were out there about a year ago. So yeah, need to get back out there and see if we can have a look at that at some point. So yeah, but yeah, that's all you really need to know about Korngårdens. I'll put their website in the description for you below as well, and you can check that out. But let's actually get on to the tasting of this beer itself. So I can put the brewery notes away for this one, and we can get on to it here. So it's it says here, in Sweden we were producing hops since around the year 1200. In 1442 it was even, it was considered a duty, something like that. So now it's basically saying now we are producing hops in Sweden again. Our old tradition has got a new life with new varieties of Swedish hops. We have brewed the local hops, grower reserves. This is our best. It's basically saying like this is our best selection, if you like, from their harvest in 2018. They've used their best selection of hops for harvest in this beer, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I always like this little symbol that Remmarlöv put on their beers, the little chicken here, made in Skåne. There you can see it here. Is the label, and this one not too dissimilar from the regular local hops one that they do, and of course it has the standard Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri cap on it, the one with that little chicken there. But yeah, it says best served between 6 and 9 degrees. I would guess this one is around 6 degrees at the moment. I've given it a little bit of time out of the fridge, and as I mentioned to you, it comes in at 7% ABV, and it's described on Untappd as a dark ale. So yeah, let's just get it out and see how we get on then. Very curious to see how this beer turns out. I think I paid about 70 or 80 crowns for this one. I think it was 79 crowns 80 or something, 80 ora or something like that, or 800 ora that would be. But yeah, nicely presented. And you know, for a big 750 like that, you know, 80 crowns is okay. But yeah, so as you can see with this beer, it's poured a nice, bright, quite, you know, it's actually quite a ruby colour, this one. Almost a little bit like a brown ale or a dark amber ale in terms of its appearance. There's a solid finger of a frothy, I would say kind of fawn, beigey coloured head on this one. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But this beer is actually quite transparent. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see pretty much right through this one. But yeah, very, very nice looking beer, this one. To me, in terms of appearance, it looks like a nice sort of red ale or something like that, a nice red sort of amber type ale, this one, and quite clear too. So yeah, there you can see. So not sure what to expect from this one in terms of style, but we'll have a taste of it in a little minute and we'll kind of make an assessment of it. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one. Oh, okay. So for me, this beer, it has a nice kind of bready base to it. It's almost like a little bit like a sort of brown breads. Like it reminds me of this, you know, it's not smørrebrød, is it? It's one of the. It reminds me of one of the bread varieties that I always get in the supermarket. I forget the name of it because I know the pack and just pick it up. But it's definitely got a nice sort of brown bready malt base to it. There's definitely a bit of a cereal kind of element to the malt base in this one. Most of their beers, I should say as well, I think all of the beers that Remmarlöv do are kind of organic certified, which is pretty cool, so they are an organic producer. But yeah, nice big kind of brown bready malt base to this one, a little bit of a cereal kind of grainy character in there too. You can also pick up a nice bit of a sweeter caramel, but it's also got an element of a kind of biscuity note to it as well. It always reminds me, or this one reminds me of McVitie's Digestives. I'm not sure if the Swedes will know that descriptor. I can't actually remember having seen McVitie's Digestives over here, but that sort of almost like slightly corn syrupy biscuit type thing, or cookies as the Americans would call it, it really reminds me, the aroma really reminds me of that actually. So yeah, just pay attention to that a little bit in this one. But yeah, big bready notes to this one, as I was saying. Brown bread, grainy bread, a little bit of a kind of cereally element to it as well. Lovely little bit of brown sugar, but also kind of biscuity. There's almost a little bit of a toasty kind of aroma to this one as well, which is really, really nice. On the hoppy side of things, it's quite grassy and floral, I would say, leaning a little bit more towards the grassy side of things. There is an element of earthiness in there too, which is quite interesting. The Magnum normally, of course, Magnum is a German hop variety by origin from what I remember. Saphir I think might be as well, and usually they're used as bittering hops, from what I remember. But so yeah, it's got a little bit of an earthiness there. It's a little bit darker. The earthiness is a little bit darker than you'd get from a normal kind of German hop. Of course, everything from, you know, nutrients in the soil, the soil that the hops are grown in can affect the flavour of these things. So you can grow the same hop variety in different countries. Like you know, Soriachi Ace is a prime example. There's a variety of that kind of grown in America, and there's the original one from Japan, and they both taste different just because of the different soil compositions. So with this one, even though these are German hops, to me it smells a little bit more earthy. The floral quality is a little bit more, it's leaning a little bit more towards the kind of herbal side of things, but at the same time it retains that kind of fresh grassiness and a little bit of that sweet earthiness that you would expect of a German noble hop. So it's interesting. It's taken almost, the way to describe these Swedish ones for me, it's almost taking a little bit of it's taking a little bit of an English character and putting that on top of a kind of strong German malt base, if you like. That's sorry, on top of a strong German kind of noble hoppy quality. I think that's a fair way to describe what's going on in this one. But there's also an element of a red fruity note to this beer as well. It's slightly kind of figgy, but there's also a sort of candied red fruit in there as well, like a sort of candied strawberry or something coming out of this one. It definitely has a little element of that. If you sugar the beer up, you get a nice whiff of caramel, and you also get some of these kind of candied red fruity esters coming out after it too, which is really interesting. So yeah, take a little bit of time and just enjoy the aroma of this beer. It's definitely made me quite curious about it. So as I always say, half the experience with these craft beers is definitely you know, just taking in the aroma and enjoying it. The same for whiskey and the same for sake, of course. But let's have a taste of this beer then. So this one is the local hops, the Growers Reserve from the Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri, with hops from Korngården just outside of Staffanstorp. Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri, of course, are from Eslöv, a little bit further north. But let's get stuck into this one. A 7% dark ale from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri here in Eslöv in Skåne in the south of Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål. Yeah, that's nice actually. It's there's elements of this one. It's reminding me. There's a little bit of an English ale quality to this one, but it's also got a little bit of a German dunkely note to it as well, which is quite interesting. An interesting combination of flavours going on in this one. Yeah. That's a nicely done beer. I mean, it's not, let's be straight up, it's not one of these ones that's going to, you know, blow the face off you in terms of malts and sweetness and things like that. It's not one of these ones that's going to blow the head off you in terms of hops and IBUs and fruitiness and things. It's one of these beers that's really nicely balanced, and it's all about how the different kind of flavours go together. To me, it's got a little bit, it does have a little touch of an English ale quality to it. It reminds me a little bit of you know, the Örebro bitter from Närke Brewery, or you know, the Bideru bitter that you get from Nynäshamns Ång Brewery as well. It's got a little bit of that kind of character to it, to be honest with you as well. But at the same time, it has some kind of elements of a German dunkel. There's a few things kind of going on in there. So stylistically, this is somewhere between a kind of English bitter and also a little bit of a a German dunkel. It's a really interesting beer, this, and I will say a thumbs up on this one. I do like what they're doing here, but it's one of these beers that's more about, you know, being well balanced rather than being quite punchy and in your face. But that's what they want to do. They want to highlight the hops, the flavours of these hops. So from what Hampus told me, these beers are kind of meant as like educational beers almost, to just kind of let people know, look, this is being grown in your backyard. So it's a cool concept, I think. I do like that. So yeah, let's just kind of let's focus on the malt base with this a little bit. So as I was saying before, with this one, you can feel there's a nice little bit of a bready malt base there. That just blankets the middle of your palate. On top of that, you can really feel some of the grainy notes pushing their way out a little bit more the further into the aftertaste that you go. It's almost got, it's not quite a rye bread quality, but it's like some of these kind of, it's not like smørbrød, I don't think. It's got a little bit of this nice sort of Scandinavian, slightly grainier bready quality to it. You can just feel that blanket in the middle of your palate. On top of that, it's got a nice sort of sweet caramel base to it. It's almost a little touch toasty actually, but at the same time it's got a little bit of a more syrupy, kind of slightly treacle-ish or molasses kind of flavour. There is a little bit of that in the middle of the palate as well, but as you go further out from the centre of your tongue, it does get a little bit more biscuity. It's reminding me a little bit of the, it really is reminding me a little bit of the kind of more biscuity, like McVitie's digestive sort of flavours. It really does remind me of that, this beer. And yeah, when you go further forward on your palate, there's maybe a tiny little bit of an almost nutty flavour right in the centre of your palate. There's just a little tiny bit of a nutty flavour kind of mixing in with that sort of grainy bready base that it has. I really like the way the malt base comes out on this one, so I'm going to say to Hampus, really well done on that. I like how everything is kind of going together on this one. As I say, the breadiness and the slightly grainy notes that the beer has, that gives it, pardon me, that gives must have just taken a little bit of that down the wrong way or something. But yeah, it reminds me a little bit of the English bitter base that you get, but at the same time it's got a little bit more of the sweetness and caramelly qualities, and also the smoothness actually that you would expect of a German Dunkel. This beer really is somewhere in between those two styles for me. On the hoppy side of things, back corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of an earthy quality in there. There's some of that slightly sweet German type noble earthiness, which I guess will be from the Magnum hop in this one. It is a German hop by origin. I'm guessing they'll have used a little bit of Saphir in there, and if I remember correctly, that's also a German hop. So it's got a nice little bit of sweet earthiness in there. As you come further forward, it's almost a little bit more kind of herbal, and that's kind of making me think there's a little bit of an English kind of edge to this beer as well. And as you come further forward, there's a little bit of a kind of floral aromatic quality at the front corners of the palate, and round the very front curve of the tongue for me it's a little bit lighter and grassy, and the grassy character that comes out of this one is kind of distinctively German for me. That'll be the Magnum and the Saphir coming out of this one. And if you go behind the front curve of your palate, the very kind of front curve of your tongue, that's where you get that nice little oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters start to come out of the beer. But yeah, for me, on the fruity side of things, it's definitely a sort of reddish fruit quality, but it's quite a rich red fruit quality. I think there is a little bit of a kind of figgy element to this one, and the further into the flavour you go, it's got a little bit of a kind of more candied red fruit. As I always say, it reminds me of these little Haribo, the little heart-shaped sweets you get in the Haribo Star Mix. Right on the tip of the tongue, it definitely has a little bit of that more kind of candied red fruit note, but behind that it's a little bit more figgy. It's almost got a little touch of a kind of cakey element to it as well, which is quite nice. I like how all these flavours are kind of going together. You can feel it's almost, the fruity qualities in this one, it's almost a little bit like a slightly alcoholic cake, if that makes sense at all. But yeah, the whole blend of flavours in this one is really nice, and it's as I've said before, I've never been a big fan of the English bitter style of beer, but the way that the Swedes seem to brew them with, you know, the slightly more fruity and hoppy kind of thing, it's almost like a little bit of a new world take on it. The Swedes seem to do them very, very nicely, and to put a little bit of that German Dunkel quality in there with this beer as well, it really works quite nicely. So yeah, if we had to put a style label on this beer, you don't have to do it, of course. For me, the main thing is, you know, is it a good beer or not? And this is a good beer, but if I really had to pin a style label on this one, a little bit of German Dunkel in there, and a little bit of an English bitter, and it reminds me in some ways of the Bedero bitter from Nynäshamn Brewery, and also a little bit of the Örebro bitter from the Närkekulta Brewery up in Örebro. It's got a little touch of that kind of it to it, this one, but it's also got a little bit of some of the German Dunkels, you know, that you're going to find, the likes of Augustiner and or Augustiner and things like that as well. So yeah, if that sounds seems like if you like those two beer styles, if you like a Dunkel and English bitter, I think this is one that you will enjoy. And as I say, it's very cool to have a beer that is brewed with Swedish hops. So in terms of the mouthfeel then, mid-bodied beer for me. Yeah, mid-bodied beer for me. Carbonation's very smooth. The mouthfeel, it's got a mix between an oily and a wet mouthfeel. This one, it's kind of somewhere in the middle, leaning a little bit more towards the oily side of things. That's helping bringing out a little bit more of the sweetness in the malt base for me. Nice little bit of hoppy bitterness. I think you'd be lucky to have around 30 IBUs for this one. It's got a little bit of that. It's mainly the way that the earthiness comes out in this one builds a good bridge with the sweetness of the beer too. But there's a nice sweet malt base to this one. It's got a little bit of a grainy edge underneath, but it's mainly smooth. It's not bitter from that sort of grainy side of the beer. And you've also got some nice juicy fruitiness in there as well. But overall, like I said, I like this beer, and I think they've done a good job of this one. But Hampus, quite a talented brewer, I have to say, so not surprised that he's managed to pull off something quite interesting with this beer. So yeah, if you get the chance to try this one, I do recommend that you do, particularly if you like some of the Swedish takes on the English bitter or a nice German Dunkel. So yeah, have a go at this one for yourself and just see what you think. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. So yeah, this was the Local Hops Growers Reserve, brewed by Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri up in Eslöv, just a bit to the north of me here in Lund. Lovely, lovely beer, this one, with a little bit of an element of English bitter, Swedish English bitter I should say, and some nice German Dunkel qualities as well. But really glad I was able to try this one. It's one of the really interesting small partier beers that I've had recently from Systembolaget, and I recommend that you have a go at this yourself if you get the chance. But once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below, and as always, do recommend me some other local beers and things like that. Let me know some Skånsk breweries that I haven't actually tried yet, and there are a couple that I do still need to get out there and do reviews from. But thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. Make sure you check out my social media, and make sure you have a go at some of these Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri beers. Until the next time, it's Slan just now, and I will catch you guys very soon. Skål.